Yeah, hello and welcome to another episode of the Spielworxx Chat Season 3. And my name is Uli Blennemann, and I'm having a guest today. It is Drew Wehrle of Wehrlegig. Woohoo! So welcome, Drew. How are you?
I'm doing very well, Uli. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, so I'm really excited talking to you today, and we are already having some people here in the chat. Hello, Daniel, and he's saying first, yeah, this is really an exception for the Brood of Brooklyn. And hello, Andre, good seeing you, the resident rooster. Hello, Drösig, hello, Stefan, good seeing you. And yeah, let's simply start. But before we start, Drew, I have one news item, and that is Pilgrim by Nick Case, which is a corporation of Spielworxx and Amusement, is currently at GameFound. And here is the URL. So if you are interested, please check in this game, please check it out. And it is almost funded. I think with 12 days to go now, it is at 95% or something like this. So thank you very much for your support. And if you have any questions today, please put them in the chat window and Drew will surely respond. And actually, I have one more news item, which is very recent, and this is related to Wehrlegig, because I got some files from Cole and Drew for John Company today, so the localization can start, and I'm really very excited for this as well.
Yeah, Uli, it's going to be a lot of work translating. I don't know how many tens of thousands of words are in those files, but I'm glad that the first step takes place today.
Yeah, this is great. This is great. So I'm really, really excited about this. But now to start, Drew, are you a longtime gamer? And which type of games do you prefer when you play?
Nice. So Uli, Cole and I have been, you could imagine, we've been playing games for a very long time. Cole's spoken to this a bunch before, but we've been playing, as games, I mean, back until I can really remember a lot of very clear memories of being 5 and 6 years old and playing Stratego and early games, especially because we grew up in a household with so many kids running around that there was always someone to either babysit and watch, or whether it was sitting down with Cole and just playing a board game that had missing pieces, so we had to make up rules. So I already feel like designer and developer like principles and practice was already happening in our very much in a busy home of 5 kids. And I feel like a lot of that also goes back to our dad's brother, who often would find his way to giving us copies of old SPI games or old war games. I really remember getting a copy of I think it had missing pieces too. A copy of Third Reich and maybe a used copy of the first edition of Squad Leader.
Yeah, I had that one too. 77 it came out, I think, and I had it a little bit later. And I was really so amazed when I thought, wow, this is possible in a game. It was at that time heaven. Today I would say, all this process and these sub phases, and there are tables. Has a tank commander, had a great breakfast this morning, checked this table, and then all this. But sorry to interrupt you.
But I mean, I remember just being like kind of mesmerized by like how much stuff was happening, and maybe just like the quantity of chits and tables. And this probably also played into our early love of CRPGs and early computer games because our grandpa was an engineer and did a lot of work programming on early computers, and I think gifted us a very old 386 computer that some kids were very lucky to have in the 90s, though well outdated. Allowed us to like have our first interaction with like running games off of DOS and playing. I was just waxing poetic with Cole about playing BattleTech and these early like mech turn-based tactical strategy games that I just loved. And then to see them kind of existing, 10, 20 years before in the tabletop space was sort of mesmerizing. So I do think that even early on, there was like a lot of intersectionality happening between the strategy game space that I was falling in love with as a kid on old computers and discount bin computer games, and also the tabletop world that I would find myself in today.
Very, very interesting. Yeah, busy times, but also good times, because we had times. And Daniel is saying, I can see Union Station on Drew's shelf. Nice.
Oh, yeah.
It's there.
Union Station is a treat. Since finishing up with the John Company second edition development and file submission, where it is fully John Company is fully like off our desk right now, besides a few small things, but it is currently in mass production, which is super exciting. And I found myself playing other games besides John Company. So I've been spilling into some very fun train games on my weekly game nights in town. And Union Station has been was a treat to play recently, paired with I think we may have run it again with another Travis Hill game too. We may have had a little night of it.
Yeah, great game here. And hello, Chris, good seeing you. And Tony, hello, Tony is having a question. Hey, Drew, did I miss finding out whether you're the older or younger brother?
Oh, I am tickled that folks think I'm old. That folks think I'm older than Cole, but no, I am the younger of the brothers. There's actually another younger. Cole's the oldest of five, and I'm in the middle.
Okay.
5 years is younger. And I feel like our youngest brother, who is, I think the difference between Cole and him is 13 years. He certainly keeps us aware of what the young people are up to these days. So he keeps us grounded in the Gen Z.
Which is also important. And John's in for my Kickstarter copy of John Company Volume 2. So yeah, it's coming up, right? When is it appearing? Do you have?
So John Company is currently in mass production. If it's actually, some parts of it have been in mass production since December or January, but the paper, the punch board and the cards are finally getting made. Looks like things are going to be done in early June, which is very exciting. It means that the first copies are going to be sent out later in June, and hopefully then the rest of July was going to be the bulk of fulfillment. We're going to have a Kickstarter update once we're a little further along and those dates kind of lock up, but we are chugging along, and I'm so grateful to have so many patient and very understanding backers. I feel like we are so lucky to have backers that read updates, backers that are really involved in the process, that want to get into the nitty gritty details of the design and the production, because it means that that these are huge, long projects, and affording ourselves from, I think it was maybe 4 or 5 months beyond what we originally estimated, after even more supply chain strangeness, to say it lightly, from this last year, actually makes me feel pretty good. That was only a few months after when we originally projected. So I was really glad to be afforded that extra flexibility. But yeah, it's coming. It is coming.
Very good, and really very good. Tony, I saw your last question, but I will get to this a little bit later. But I think this one, I think I even mentioned this before, so please bear with me if I'm boring you. But this, I think it's a nice story, and because Tony is saying, make sure I get to teach it to Uli, so John Company second edition, because I'm really good at teaching it. Yeah, we had this affair at, I think, LariaCon in Portugal 2018 or whenever it was, John Company first edition. And I had read the rules, but I hadn't played it at that time. And I'm an early riser, but I'm also early in bed too. So at 10 o'clock in the evening, I'm getting sleepy normally. And Tony was at 11 o'clock. I was still up there. He said, well, I've played the game, John Company First Edition, recently. Let's play. And I was so excited. And I'm teaching, Tony said. And I was so excited that I said, well, yeah, I'm in. So Tony's explaining the game. In my opinion, at least, it didn't make any sense what he was saying. And we played the game. Next day, I checked the rules. Everything was wrong. But the good thing was that because I was so sleepy, I fell asleep when I did my turn and then immediately fell asleep. And then somebody woke me up. I did my next turn and I won. So that tells you you can win the John Company First Edition or Second Edition while sleeping. But it's really Tony. Tony, I have to blame him because his teach was horrible at that time.
Well, Uli, I'll say that I've yet to hear that about the second edition, so maybe we could already put that into a feather in our cap for the second edition that people have not fallen asleep yet, or maybe they have, they just haven't told me.
Yeah,
no, it's a massive game, and I think the teach is such an important part of it. Cole may have alluded to this last time, but it's worth sharing again because of like just the size and scope of this game. Like the first thing that you're going to open in the box is a like a little piece of paper that just tells you to take your time with this game, take your time to learn it, and you're going to be responsible for like teaching and ushering this game because it's a massive undertaking. We realized that like even in the first paragraph of the rules, we really wanted to like make sure that folks knew what they were getting into. And I kept on finding myself just wanting to describe the teach of John Company and the facilitation of it in almost in the same sort of terms that I would as an educator teaching other teachers how to talk about a unit or a particular lesson that they felt uncomfortable with, and about like equipping them with knowledge that they're about to undertake a difficult task of teaching this thing. Yeah. And it asks a lot. And almost like in the same way that it does for someone who's facilitating an RPG, especially if it's a GM RPG where they have to do a lot of groundwork to build and to maintain and to, to keep the rules in their heads so that their players who are not doing so much heavy lifting can still enjoy that space. Because it's a really fruitful space when players don't have to carry all of the weight that a single person does for the game space to like lower the barrier entry for some. And I think it's also why we've gravitated towards rolling teaches for how to teach the game, which I still find very interesting, especially if you take a seat to letting the theme and the narrative aspects of the game drive some of your decisions until the rules set in, which just like helps the first game, especially. Such a mechanical perspective that first time around.
I agree 100%. And this John Company First Edition experience, I blame it on Tony, and of course because I was sleepy. So afterwards I played John Company First Edition a couple of times, and I really like this game very much too. And Tony is saying here, I find Cole's games very intimidating at first, but highly rewarding during and after play. I think Wehrlegig are really design innovators at this moment, and I agree 100% here, Tony. It's special, and that's why Drew is my guest, because he's also special. But what did you do, Drew, before you became a pro in the gaming industry? So what did you do for your living?
Well, thanks for the nice words, Tony. That means a lot. Before Cole and I started Wehrlegig, I was in... I actually did all of my formal studies in undergrad because I was hoping to enter the world of microbiology research. So I was very interested in lab work around genetic transferring of plasmids and agrobacterium, and I was looking at doing field work. This led me into work in the museum space. where I found out that I actually liked talking about my research that I was doing and sharing the exciting parts of it rather than actually doing the pipetting in the lab. I just wanted to talk about it a lot more. So I found myself doing educational classes for youth, pre-K through K, or pre-K through 12. And I ended up running field trip and school programs for the Botanic Garden in Chicago for 5 years or so. And in that space, I really doubled down on a path of non-formal education and doing a lot of connected learning experiences with students, learning outside of the classroom that is still valuable, that can still be translated into skills. And this unconstructed non-formal learning space was really exciting. And then I realized at some point in time, it correlated entirely with my experience of independent learning from being interested in historical research, in historical topics, or doing research outside of class. And it's inflecting the sort of board games and media that I was consuming too, as a vital part of my identity around the kind of learner that I was. And I think these are similar experiences to how I engage with nature and plants. A lot of that learning, though situated, is often done outside of the classroom or can be presented in a non-formal way, so that it can be learner-driven, student-driven, and all of that experience was then compounding, and I found my career path headed towards a space of fundamental principles to set me on a path in education in the museum or nonprofit sphere. Then Cole came to me. So all this time, Cole is working on titles for these independent titles. We're playing board games and we're playing games online the entire time. And then in 2017, Cole is thinking about another printing and the future of the Sierra Madre title Pax Premier. And at this point in time, Cole's thinking, do I bring this to another publisher and see if they want this game? I have the rights to myself, and I want this to exist somewhere. I want this to see a new life. And this is when he thought he really came to me with this proposition of, Drew, do you want to just try to do this thing together? And for me, it was kind of a reflection point of thinking, if this is a totally different career path, when I realized it's actually enabling me to do a lot more of the same work that I was doing, just in a different subject matter. But all the while, we knew that this was sort of a risky enterprise. So we started and launched Wehrlegig with the clear expression that we had no idea if this thing had legs at all. And I remained full-time for the first 2 years of this project, where we both worked on nights, and we worked on weekends, we worked on family vacations, whenever we could get together, so that we could launch it for crowdfunding on Kickstarter at some point in time and see if folks wanted it. So this plays into the idea that this, from the beginning, was set up as really trying to minimize our risk. But also because we had very little market understanding of what this game could be. That's kind of how we launched Pax Premier, sort of naively, sort of in a place that we just wanted it to exist again. And we wanted this game to be in print because we thought it was urgent, and we wanted to share the work that Cole has put into it in kind of a bigger place. And I'm so I'm just so grateful still that even 4 years into this industry, that we got to make Pax Premier, and we continue to get to print and share this work that was truly a product of passion and risk, even if it was only going to fund for a small print run. I mean, that's why we started the company, to it wasn't even about growth or setting future titles. It was, we wanted Pax Premier to exist on a bigger stage, because we thought that the game was important and it needed shared.
Yeah, but I think this is the best reason you can have if you for starting a company, because you want something which you think is important in whatever way, whatever that means is important, and that you want to share this with others. So I think this is the best reason you can really have. And I personally, I'm very glad that you did so, because Pax Pamir is my most played game of the last several years. So it's simply an amazing game. And by the way, this is a URL to the website of the Wehrlegig, so please check it.
Thanks.
Check it out. But which type, if you can say so, which type or types of games does Wehrlegig like to publish? Is it only Cole's games? Is it only games from a special genre of the industry? So how do you see this?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really interesting question, because right when we started, I don't think I could have possibly answered that. We were so singularly focused on, I hope Pax Pamir can be made. And then when it actually came out, and we thought of ourselves as a bit of a larger publisher and not just a side gig to Drew and Cole working together, that we realized, oh, we now have a bit larger of an audience. I wonder if we could then pursue our own projects. And one of the clearest, most obvious projects was actually working on John Company, a project that Cole always wanted to finish. Even after finishing the first edition, Cole was itching to still work on it, and did. But when we think about the sort of projects that we wanted to start and work on, I think a core ethos and identity to all of our games is that, and I think we've said this before, are games that want to treat subjects and treat their players very seriously, and at the core also tackle underrepresented historical topics. And so we do ground all of our games, and we hope to in the future continue putting our games in historical settings, but specifically giving them unique perspectives.
Yes.
That because there are a lot of games that talk about empire, but do it in very ambiguous terms. Yeah. Do it in terms that are also not criticizing and even celebrate an exploitation of people and labor. When we want our games to, especially John Company, enable people to ask hard questions of themselves and of the game, and to see the satire that's innately in John Company and in other games. And I do think that maybe it's because so much of Cole and I's games and our design ethos in our games currently and in future games is inflected by, is impressed upon by other media, because we are just constant consumers of books and of movies, that we see our works existing in this larger media landscape, and we want our games to extend the same, we want them to be under the same critical lens that we would want some person to see a play or watch a movie, and give the same sort of credence to the arguments and the style and the perspective that a different work might be given.
That was wonderfully stated. Yes, and I think this is a great aim, but there are very few companies that really fulfill this, and Wehrlegig is one of the very few, for sure, that is constantly doing this. And there are some comments here also. Daniel is saying new mill industry, so Tony Miller and Daniel Newman is also, they started for the same reason, that they wanted to do the same thing, the things that they really think others might like as well. And Tony Boydell is making another comment here. He is back into your dark corner, Tony. He is asking, how about Agri Cole Lar? Or Drew York Zoo. That's bad, Tony. Back into the dark corner.
That is my humor for Cole. I get to bother Cole all day long with horrible jokes that make me that definitely emphasize that we are definitely still brothers and definitely poke each other in the ribs all day long. So I appreciate that humor, but no plans anytime soon.
But Tony is asking also, are there any themes that you would regard as taboo? Would you touch everything? You stated earlier the topics have to be treated with respect. Yes, but are there still topics that you would not touch?
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think absolutely. And a lot of, I think the treatment of historical subjects also is so important about that the authorship is a part of the design identity around the work. And I think Cole's formal experience and formal education around British literature, and him being formerly a Victorianist, and the amount of time that he spent with other historians and scholars setting the foundational texts and having access in an academic setting to the historical texts that define Pax Pamir's arguments, define John Company's full narrative structure, is because that Cole is is a historian in some regards, right? With how he's approaching these things, and certainly worked with historians when doing this research. When looking at other games and thinking about other themes, we would want this same critical perspective, but coming from someone that knows more than us, right? I feel like Cole is not going to be making a game about any random historical theme that he finds particularly interesting. And I think it has to do with access to professionals and experts that are coming from academic backgrounds. And I think that collaboration is really key. And it's also a reason why our games take so long to make. We've always had a corner of the games that we want to make and talk about fitting into a very slow growth model of less than one title a year, and sticking to that. And I feel like we are trying to keep along that same sort of average, which goes against a lot of companies' desire to grow and to do more. And I have been thrilled that Cole and I it's still just Cole and I, by and large. We have partners that we work with, and there's a lot of work that needs done that cannot just be done by Cole and I. But I do think that a part of treating a game seriously and treating its subject seriously has to do with authorship, and also given the amount of time that it takes to fully vet its argument among academic professionals and with other historians. So I do think that it's a big, how do I want to say this? It's a very large picture perspective to see the growth of creative work existing so slowly as a small team. But it's because I want to be very careful, and I want the criticisms to be sharp, and I want the work to be well vetted. And I think that becomes from a place where Cole and I are a bit of perfectionists, and we want our games to say the most, and maybe because there's a chance that these games might not be made again. Yeah. There's a chance that these might be the only games about this subject to exist and present arguments in the way that they do. So we feel like we want it to, for the work to last. Even if it doesn't, or if it doesn't matter, we might as well apply it with that same ethos, that if it is going to be a thing that we make, let's really make it sure that it's worthwhile and it does as much as it can do.
And to me, this model of doing less than one game a year is very, very interesting. I think it's also kind of, from my perspective, it's also a little bit of scary, because if you fail with this game, which I think you won't, because you put so much work into this product, so it shows and it is successful, but still it's another thing that makes Wehrlegig surely special. And hello, Nick, by the way. Good seeing you. And before we go here, I have to get back to Tony's much earlier question, because Pax Pamir is a Cole design. John Company is a Cole design. Of course, you worked with him together, developing, testing, and giving you ideas. But Tony has asked before, will we see a Drew design in the future, or isn't this your role?
That's a funny question. Cole's actually asked a bunch of times, and though I feel a lot of creative energy when I'm working on Wehrlegig products, and I love being a part of Cole's design. I feel like I have seen every iteration of every design Cole's worked on, and I love it, and I love getting to like work very closely. I don't feel any desire to do my own designs. It is, and I am just like happy to not be on to share that part of the stage. And I think that actually really helps Cole and I's relationship because of how much I like the back end and how much I like development work. It allows us to divide labor when working on projects in a way that we rarely get to, because you have to wear so many hats as a small publisher and do a lot of share a lot of tasks. And it's one of the few places where I can say I am not designing, and I don't really have desires to. But I've thought about it. So maybe 10 years from now I'll be working on something. Who knows?
Yeah, and I would look into this, but I totally understand. And Tony is making more. Well, is it punts even? I'm not sure. I'm not repeating them here. And Daniel is joining him. No, not at this moment. But you mentioned this, all the different tasks you are doing as a small publisher. How do you work? What is a typical working day of Drew Wehrle? So if you can say so.
I think a part of being a small publisher is embracing the seasonality of the publishing process, because early stage design and then development and place testing periods is such a different routine than what requires you when you're doing file prep and pre-press and in production and logistics. And because we work on so few titles across the year, different parts of my year and my daily structure change according to what stage of the product we're in. So actually, I feel like that this is one of the few places that feels a lot similar to being a teacher and my experience in education, which is a very, very seasonal job, that the comfort of teaching a unit that you've taught before means that you have different flexibility versus a very stressful part of the year, or periods where you have a lot more time to do creative work or logistic work. So I actually really embrace the seasonality, and my wife is also a teacher. And I think seasonal nature of work really helps keep it very fresh and exciting. But I would say right now, often my days could be broken into very two clear halves, which is logistic, customer service, email, business in the morning, and then after lunch, my afternoon shifts into development and creative work for the afternoon. Sometimes those swap, but I really try to set my day into sort of two halves, if I can, which is nice for me. I think Cole and I have also been, because we're at the end of a project and we're starting up new projects, we are currently trying to apply some better best practice principles for us, which is not just thinking about project management. It has to do with taking some principles from DevOps and finding a parts of our days where we are creating waste cycles of creating a task or a process of this file will then have to be approved or be checked by me before we can upload it for testing on our digital platform. And if there is a mistake, does that bounce back to Cole? Are we creating time loops and waste for ourselves? Or am I switching tasks too often in the morning so that I'm creating kind of wasted time? Also that we can have a bit more of a structure. But because Cole is full-time and it's just the two of us, I do basically everything that I can for anything that isn't design-related work or marketing related. And I will do as much of the back end as possible. So I try to keep to a very full-time 9 to 5 sort of day, which really helps set precedent for Cole. But I have to We often still work on weekends and nights because because Cole is still full time. So it ebbs and flows. But I hope that gives you a good sense about my days changing often.
Yeah, I can sympathize, and a little bit. It's like mine, and I normally really try to stop at 5 in the afternoon, early evening as well. But as you said, it's weekends. It's testing in the evening. It's others, or you are in the summer. You are outside. And then you think about something, and no, let me write this down. Oh, what if you're doing this? It's what it is.
Yeah.
Hello, Jay Foolsguard. He has a question. What is your most important tool for development? Is there one important tool?
No, I wouldn't say so. I would say it's really funny. I would say there are like top 3 tools that we use, which is like, and I don't love any of them, but it is what we have. And I would say our top tools that are like, I don't know how we would function without them would be the Adobe suite, and having access to incredibly good and integrated software between Illustrator and InDesign specifically has been an incredible tool for us to use. Their data merges and keep files active, and being able to iterate very easily on files as we make them is incredible. Using digital platforms like Tabletop Simulator to build files is also that's where design happens a lot for us, because it's so malleable. Even as a little physics engine, and Discord is the third one, because it is where Cole and I can very easily meet, have phone calls, have text channels, and it works really well for bringing in playtesters and kind of posting publicly about our processes. So like those are 3 digital tools that are super important to how we function.
Okay. And hello, Björn. Good seeing you. No, super glue, which you are mentioning, is not one of the important development tools. Andre is having a question. What's the story behind your company logo? It's obviously the letter W, but what does the curved orange part of the logo represent?
Oh, that's that is up for you to interpret however you want. No, but a part of its inspiration had to do with the maple leaf samara, the seed that has the propeller end that you'll often see helicoptering down to the ground, which feels like a very Midwestern tree around here, the maple tree, but also the prop of a plane, and the fact that Wehrlegig is. It is small, it's in motion, and we don't know what might come of it. There might be a sapling or a full tree, but definitely the seed analogy was a part of like the desire. And I think Cole and I also just liked the way it looked too. But it came from I think I was just drawing a bunch of logos at the time, and I was maybe in my car when I thought, ooh, what if I made this little part? But yeah, I have a little notebook of me fiddling around with drawing logos out until I landed on that one.
But it looks nice. So Andre, now you know. Good answer, by the way. But what are typical problems a small publisher is having? You have a lot of freedom. You work on your own stuff. Fantastic. But what problems occur?
I mean, Uli, you mentioned, especially with like this low risk or low growth, slow growth strategy, where we're thinking about our titles in long terms, in slow processes, is a huge problem about risk and about if one of these are duds. And I think one of the big problems and the big concerns for us is managing that risk, specifically around, doubts around the design or logistics. So some of that problem is actually, you have to take all of these problems and spin them into ways that feel very good, and you're very proud to be small publishers.
Yes.
But it is a little scary, and especially also to like manage and to plan around that risk means that we're setting some of that onto where these games live, and that means our backers. So a lot of that we're accountable to our backers and to like help bring these projects to life, because we don't have deep relationships with retailers and distributors when we started, and it was very scary when we had no shape. I mean, when Cole and I launched, we thought okay, we actually, Drew, are you prepared that we might be manufacturing these ourselves? Like, are you ready? And Cole and I talked about like, yeah, I think I can know how to like make the resin molds for the blocks, or like be able to like cut the wood for them. And like, that was our minimum viability test, was like, I know where these games can live in our garage, and we'll make a couple hundred of them and that'll exist. So like risk is a huge part of like the worries, but also carrying so many tasks and wearing a lot of hats as a small publisher means that you are the one that are doing convention prep or marketing materials, or you're doing the actual graphic design. Cole's done so much graphic design and become an incredible illustrator. I think he is well beyond clocked his 10,000 hours as a graphic designer, which, I mean, it shows in the games. And it's a graphic design, and working in Illustrator and InDesign has been a huge part of Cole's experience as a designer. But it also means that as a company, that is a part of our workflow that we don't have to hire out. We have to wear the hat of a graphic designer because to keep our overhead lower. But wherever we can divide tasks, we do. Thus the development and design division, and me doing all of the accounting and backend.
Yeah, it's a lot. I can certainly sympathize with this, and interesting times too. And Tony, I'm seeing your question, but I'm moving it a little bit back. Before we go to the very last question of me, I'm having another question. Now, can you imagine, Drew, that there are in the room behind you, there are 5 employees sitting there and working together with you in a large team, and it's still Wehrlegig? Or are you saying, no, I don't want to?
For a long time, Cole would just say, no. And I think we're still there. I think there is something special about us just thinking about the work and the fact that we can still manage it. There might be a day where that happens, but I love that it is just Cole and I, and that we don't have to do more than one game a day because I want to pay people equitably, and I don't feel like our company actually can. I don't want to do a disservice of hiring someone else for a part-time and think, no, this should be a full-time job. And now I'm like making the accountability for our company like socially a lot greater than it needs to be. So I think it has to do with how we want to approach games also, is like still with the mom and pop ethos of like, this is like to share with our audience, and we can really do a lot of the work. I wonder if it's like if Cole and I also have this like affinity towards I don't know, farmer markets or artisans that are making I only have the capacity to make this many little pots, and I can't do any more with my day, and that's just what I love. I don't want to manage staff that are making pots, and I really enjoy the act of creating. Still, I don't want to take that away from myself. So maybe that's where that settles in.
Yeah, but a great answer too, and I'm now getting to. Tony's question here, which leads to my last question for today here. Tony is asking, is there another edition of an Infamous Traffic coming? Because Tony is saying, I'd have to sell a child to get a copy at the moment. So is there another edition of an Infamous Traffic?
Well, so we are currently, Cole has a few copies over there. We have not started development. We really hope to. It is our plan that it won't be this year that we crack into it. I don't think so. Maybe we'll crack into it this year and just kind of open the boxes and start dabbling. Whatever. I don't know if that says anything about the timelines, but we have every intention to having an Infamous Traffic live over as a title at Wehrlegig, and to give it a delightful production and to take it through development. We've said it every time that we don't imagine the development will be that severe and that it ends up being like a fully differently realized. But I like an Infamous Traffic is so much its own game, and it was maybe more fully realized than both Pamir and John Company at time of publication. So maybe there's actually a lot less to change than it seems. I do know what things I would change. But regardless, that won't be our next project. It won't be coming this year. And like other projects, if there is demand and if it ends up being a game, we are so proud to be working with Spielworxx and other language partners to help get these games across the world. And it will be another title that we also will have live in the Creative Commons, and hopefully will be able to be played for free online too, and share free print and play files. Because that's another core identity of our company, is that though we'll make these sort of luxury products with nice components that are like fully realized, we also want to make sure that the barrier to entry is just access to the computer, so that you can have the files, and that if you have the means to either print them or to snip them up and play them digitally, you can still do that.
Yeah, I like this approach too. And Tony's also asking, Uli, you should localize the game. Yeah. And Infamous Traffic is such a great game. I'd love to, of course, localize it into German language. And I'm here with you, Drew. I don't think that it needs a lot of development.
Yep.
Because I think it's a very pure design, if this is a term. It's certainly a brutal game if you play it with the right group, but that makes it so special. It's really a wonderful design. And so that leads me now to my final question. Which game will Wehrlegig produce next if Infamous Traffic is not for this year? So what's the next title?
Sure. So Uli and I spoke. I'm not announcing any new titles right now, but I will say that our next big project is currently underway. We're still currently working on it, and we are hoping to announce details about this next project in early May, and we're going to have a big announcement where we'll share everything that we have. But look out for early May. I'm sure that we will announce it on Twitter and Board Game Geek, and we'll have we'll probably also write a Kickstarter update to our backers too about it. But that's when you should keep your eyes out for. But I'll be hush hush until then.
Yeah, that's totally fine. And it's just 2 more months. So early May, 2 more months from now, we know which game will be done by Wehrlegig next, and this will be exciting. So thank you very much, Drew, for all your insights, for all your comments today. That was wonderful. And Björn is saying here, finally, Wehrlegig deck builder. I don't think so. Maybe, who knows?
Again, no details. I won't say a thing. But Uli, it's been really nice being here. Thank you so much for having me on, and I always enjoy our chances to catch up and chat.
Yeah, and we will. Yeah, and hopefully, maybe Essen time. Maybe later this year we can meet in person, Cole, Drew, and you. This would be really wonderful. There is a Nick Tringale is saying, fingers crossed for dexterity game. So, well, no, I don't think so. But we'll see. No, who knows? Who knows? But next week, and thank you also, of course, to all viewers for all your questions, comments. We really appreciate this. And next week, there is no Spielworxx chat. I'm trying now to move it back to bi-weekly, which I had announced early this year, and then it was week after week. So, but next week is no Spielworxx chat. So the next one is on March 22. Thank you again, everyone, for your time. If you would like to see a special topic discussed, have specific questions you'd like to ask in advance, please drop me a mail at uli@spielworxx.de. That is uli@spielworxx.de. And till March 22nd, bleibt alle gesund. Bye-bye. Bye.